Good morning. Hope all's well. Um, so, what is it today? Wednesday. Yeah. Um, we've got a few live sessions. Also, good news: estate agents have started to open up as of today, which is good news in the market. Um, so today's live session is with a motivational speaker, Georgina Gardner. So we're gonna get her live and let's see what we can talk about.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, and yourself?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Good to have you on board on my live session. Thank you for agreeing to, come on live and speak about what you do, how you do it, all that kind of stuff. It it's great to have, speakers like yourself in terms of all this negativity and that is around us right now. People need that positiveness in their life so that they can get out and get more done with their life. And that's the whole plan of me doing this in terms of speaking to people from different backgrounds, business, because I come from property. So I speak to people who are property developers, property investors, mortgage brokers, all that kind of stuff. But then I can't just speak to property people all the time. You've got to change the subject, change the matter in there. So that's why I bring on speakers as well, so that because this live story stays on for the next 24 hours on my profile, people can come and watch as and when they like in the 24 hours. And not only that, but I also put them on my profile so that in the future anyone needs a bit of motivation, go and check it out.
Sounds great.
So Georgina, thank you so much for coming on. Before we get started, I would like you to introduce yourself as to who you are and what you do so that we can get the conversation going.
Thank you. My name is Georgina, but actually I was only ever called Georgina when I was naughty, when I was a child. And when I was really naughty, it was Georgina Ann with an E.
Wow.
So my professional name is Gina Gardner, and
Okay.
people can find me all over the place, social media and the websites and so on.
Yeah.
My work is all about personal empowerment and transformational leadership. And many people think that leadership is just for people who are in formal leadership roles, but I have a different take on that.
Sure.
We are the common denominator that we take into every second of our life, from the moment we're born until the
Yep.
moment we die.
Yep.
So it makes sense to be the leaders of our own life.
Okay.
And before you can lead other people, and for me, a lot of my work is around developing enlightened leadership. You've got to lead yourself first. So
This is what I want to talk about, because obviously motivational speakers and business coaches, life coaches, everyone,
yeah,
they coach other people. But
yeah.
how do they coach themselves?
Well, what I would say
You
to you,
know,
for me,
so
it's all
yeah.
about being authentic. So I don't coach people in anything that I don't do myself.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean I've experienced every situation they've had. So, for example, I have coached people from most types of industry.
Okay.
Interestingly, a lot of property developers, financial advisors, mortgage brokers, and the like.
Yep.
The strategies and the approaches and principles that I use with people, I have created and developed over the last 30 years.
Wow.
I walk my talk.
You got to
And
practice what you preach.
that doesn't mean that I'm perfect at
Yep.
all. But let me give you some examples. If you're going to,
Georgina, before we get on there, you mentioned that you were doing it 30, you've been doing this for the past 30 years.
I have indeed, yeah.
Did you always think, like when you were young, going to college, going to university, did you always think that this is what I want to do? This is exactly where I'm going to get into, and I'm going to become a motivational speaker, and I'm going to bring that positivity into people's life? Or was it completely different 30 years ago? I mean, you were doing, there was a different thing that you were doing, a different mindset.
It's a really interesting question. If I look prior to starting my professional life,
Yeah.
I was unhappy. I wasn't confident. I had
Okay.
no self-esteem. I was bullied at school, and
Oh,
I didn't really have a good relationship with myself.
okay.
I went into teaching, and I knew from quite a young age that I wanted to teach.
Okay.
But when I started to teach, and the first 30 years of my working life were in teaching, just over 20 years of those, I was the head teacher of a large, very successful school.
Okay.
And I ran my school for the most part from a wheelchair.
Wow.
And there has been a huge gift in that.
Okay.
So
Was it easy teaching kids?
easy? No. Did I enjoy it?
Of
Yes.
course. I mean, kids are kids,
Um,
right?
well, and the interesting thing is that once I became a head, my work became much more um, involved in teaching adults,
Because
because
you were dealing with
yeah,
the teachers at that
but
point.
one of the interesting things about adults is they're just big kids, okay, and
Hmm.
some bigger than.
My wife always says, I don't have three, I have four kids.
But the interesting thing for me is that as we grow up, one of the differentiations we need to make is it's great to be childlike and to keep the awe and wonder and curiosity and the confidence that young children have. I
Yep.
mean, have you ever known a child that's learning to walk that falls and then says, I'm not going to try again because I might look silly? Or
Exactly.
does my
Never.
or does my bum look big in this nappy?
No.
No. But
No.
the difference is that we need to be really careful that we're not being childish. And many grown-ups get stuck in the being childish, the tantrum, the ego. I've got to be seen to be right. And I think that's highly overrated. And so a lot of the work that I do is helping people recognize the habitual patterns that they engage in. And those are often installed very early based on limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough, or I can't do this. And I find it fascinating that I've done a lot of research about highly successful people.
Okay.
They're no different to you and I.
Yep.
The one difference is that they believe they can. They don't necessarily know how. And if you look at very successful people, they've often had failure after failure.
Of course.
Dyson, do you know how many prototypes he had?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Go
I
on.
mean, I'll give you an example of a guy that is from Pakistan, multi-billionaire now. I
Yeah.
mean, super billionaire. This guy, he made, like the curry powders and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
back home. Now, back home in Pakistan, you know about the spices of Pakistan and India, right? We don't need anyone's powders to cook our food. We make our own powders, right? We
Absolutely.
get we get all of that
Fresh.
stuff there. So this guy, he went to different investors and he said that, oh, I've made these powders, different types of chicken tikka, uh, you know, all sorts of powders and everything, and went to the investors, and the investors, are you crazy? We live in a country where we grind our own spices and powders, and you're telling me that we're going to sell this? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He went to so many people.
Yeah.
Today, his powders are not only sold in Pakistan,
No.
they're sold worldwide. I mean, like you mentioned, Dyson, for example, KFC, the old man, it's
Yeah.
all these stories that come by. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, right now, you gotta have, like you mentioned, a baby. You gotta fall. You gotta fall. You gotta fall. You gotta fall, and get up, get up, get up. Get that experience that, okay, I fell like this time, maybe not try it, but then you fall again doing something else, and then
Yeah.
you've got to.
It's
I mean,
isn't it? It's the
exactly,
learning from those. So
absolutely.
to go back to success, if you have a belief, I can't, I will fail, it's a done deal.
Mm,
If you have a belief, I might fail, and that's what you focus on, you're going to make a very different set of decisions than you will if I'm not sure how I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to.
absolutely.
And when you're in that success mindset, and I'm not talking about being foolhardy now and, being what I call a blind optimist, you stick your head in the sand and you don't learn, but being positive and optimistic, not only does it mean that you're more likely to succeed if you continue to work at learning and you do learn from your mistakes, but optimists live longer, they have better relationships, they have better health, they sleep better. So, and it's something you can learn.
I like to call myself an optimist.
Yeah.
Optimist,
And I think, it's really important that one is an optimist, a thinking optimist, one who looks at the data and looks at what you're doing and chooses to learn from it. But, we're going through unprecedented waters at the moment, aren't we?
Absolutely.
But I think one of the things that's really important to remember.
And now we're hearing news that there's a second wave already in China. There's
bound to be. That's the way viruses work.
Yeah.
But what I would say to you is more millionaires are made in times of trouble
Absolutely.
and depression than are ever made in times of boom.
Yeah.
It's the people who are really clear that they are going to look for opportunities. Now, I'm not talking about profiteers.
No, it could be anything. It could be anything.
Who are open and look, and instead of being in the place of, oh, what can we do about it? It's terrible, and being a victim to it. And I don't want to make light of it. People are suffering, and the amount of deaths and grief and unhappiness and challenge, I'm not underestimating that. However, if you sit there thinking about what can I do, there's nothing I can do, you are a victim, and there is then nothing that you can do.
Exactly.
However, if you start to focus on what can I do, how can I adapt my skills, expertise, experience, enthusiasms to navigate what's going on and to engage with other people, because often in that conversation there'll be a mad idea that then becomes formulated into something which is really helpful.
Absolutely.
But our mindset is what determines the quality of our life. So it makes sense to, rather than be like most people, 95% of our thinking is habitual, it makes sense to look for the opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole point of me doing these live sessions right now, not only about talking with people and bringing out knowledge, spreading positivity, but actually I was sitting when this whole lockdown started like 7 weeks ago or something. And okay, what do I do now? Take the kids to the park. It was like a week of taking kids to the park, and I was like, what am I doing? Okay, I want to enjoy time with my kids, and I want to take them to the park, and I want to, have a bit of fun time with them. But then what am I doing in my professional life? How am I creating positivity amongst me, and how am I creating my brand, and how am I letting people know that, look, BTH Properties is still here, Murtaza is still here, and he's going to be. How do I get that done? So I came up with a thing. Okay, at night times when I used to finish everything and kids were sleeping and the whole house was quiet, I used to sit on Instagram and I used to just turn on this live session on my own, talking about all sorts of stuff, business and property and food or coronavirus or the lockdown and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden one day my friend popped up on the live session like you are today, and we started talking. Now, instead of talking about just random stuff like hello, hi, how are you, blah, we started talking about work, and I started asking him questions like, what do you do at work, and how is it going right now with COVID? Are you at home? How are you taking things along? And then when I did that with him, I thought, hold on a second. If I can do it with my friend, I can do it with anyone, and I can sit down on this live session and produce positive content. Because I mean, there are a lot of people on Instagram doing all sorts of crap, and people look at that stuff and then get undermined that, why can't I do it? And this is what I wanted to change, because people these days, okay, we've got LinkedIn and we've got Facebook and we've got Twitter, I mean, and we've got Instagram, but people are, majority of the people, like 95% habitual cases are such that everyone follows that same person. Like, let's say someone's taking a selfie in the park, you will see tons of people taking a selfie in the park. One person is doing exercises at home right now, and you see tons of videos of people putting their phone there on the mat doing press ups, and I'm like, come on, where's this? It's the same thing that you're saying. We copy each another, and we don't think out of the box, and we don't think optimism, we don't think positiveness, and it just kind of, yeah, I mean, it gets boring. It really gets boring. Like, I look at other people's profiles and I look at their life stories and everything, and I'm like, you've got so many people following you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're producing content like that. Like, come on.
It's really interesting because I did a post on LinkedIn this morning about a different pandemic.
Yeah,
For me, that pandemic is comparisonitis. And that, not only I believe a lot of people are putting stuff out that is of no actual help and
exactly.
value to other people.
Exactly.
But also what concerns me is the number of people who are comparing themselves to airbrushed images of people who have maybe had surgery, or the photograph has been adapted by
Or
someone.
taking so many drugs that they don't even have stress lines on their head.
Absolutely. And what interests me is I understand why people follow the herd. We like to think we are so evolved from cavemen and women.
We're not.
No. And in many ways, I think they were probably had a better idea than we did. But one of the reasons people do that is the need to belong is incredibly strong. It's hot wired into us, because in those days, if you stood out from the crowd, if you stood outside what the village or the clan were doing,
Yep.
your chances of survival were limited.
Yeah.
You needed one another in order to hunt and to protect yourself. Now, we still need people. And I think that what we're seeing is that need to belong, even if it's at, several degrees separation, I think has become stronger because so many people are struggling with poor self-worth. They're struggling with feeling that they are enough. And they live it vicariously through other people rather than work on themselves.
Absolutely.
So if I can get a selfie that looks like this particular celebrity, then I'll feel better about me.
Exactly.
But it's transitory because it's not real.
It may give you like 5-10 minutes worth of,
If that long.
if that long, maybe even a minute, a minute of positiveness, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah.
But then you recognize that actually it isn't who you are. And when
Absolutely.
we are not being authentically, genuinely who we are, then we have a problem. And I think it's one of the reasons. Did you know that over half the prescriptions in the UK are for antidepressants? The most common reason for male death under the age of 42 is suicide.
Wow.
It beggars belief. And it's my passion and my mission to make a constructive difference and to help people recognize that actually you are enough. You can always be a better version of you if you work on you.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, you're not broken.
Yeah.
What is it you need to be able to have beliefs which support you and empower you? And I just want to make a distinction. For me, stepping into your power is not about I'm powerful, so I've got to make you weak.
Yep.
It's about if I'm standing in my genuine power, then I am in a position to notice the potential in others and to support and nurture that so you can step into your power.
Absolutely.
And then we can then do that for other people.
Absolutely.
So I've got a humongous mission. My mission is to positively impact on 1 million people in the next 5 years.
Wow.
through the development of enlightened leadership. Because let's go back to how I started this conversation. For me, enlightened leadership is about your personal and spiritual development
Yeah,
first. You have to lead yourself first, and then you can lead others effectively. And I think, maybe the pandemic is giving us an opportunity to reflect and to
absolutely.
look at what are the important values. One of the things that struck me is that some brilliant things going on in all of the darkness and the grief. Many people have started to think about how they can help others.
Yep,
They thought about being kind and considerate.
yep.
And the other thing that strikes me is 8 weeks ago, before this really took hold, could you have ever have imagined that people would be clapping and thanking
The NHS.
porters in hospitals and dustbin men and
I mean,
people in the
these are the same people we badmouth every time.
and yet they are people who are putting their lives in danger in order to help us.
Yep.
8 weeks ago, you were of no account to many people unless you were a celebrity. And
Yep.
sometimes your only reason for being a celebrity is that you ate worms in a jungle. And
I know where this
or
is
that you
going.
were a great sports person.
Yeah,
Ultimately, isn't it time that we valued one another for the actual contribution that we make to society?
absolutely.
And many people say to me, yeah, but there's only me. What can I do? I don't have any power. And I say to them, have you ever spent the night in a bedroom with a mosquito? Never, ever underestimate the power of something small and individual. We each have the power as we walk down the road to say good morning. If you're not wearing a mask, to smile, to do a random act of kindness. It doesn't have to cost you any money. It just has to
Absolutely.
cost you a bit of
Absolutely.
thought.
Maybe your smile just enlightens someone at that time that they're in. You
Absolutely.
don't know what they're going through, you don't know what they're thinking, but they saw you on the road and you smiled at them, and that just put that just put a thing in their head that there are positive people in this planet and I can become positive too.
Or, giving somebody the gift of truly giving them your full attention.
Absolutely.
How often are people on the phone while somebody's talking to them? I was in a restaurant before all this happened, and I was horrified, actually.
Yep.
There were two ladies and a little boy about age 9 or 10, and it was obviously his birthday.
Okay.
So they're sitting in the table next to us.
Yep.
Each of them are on their piece of electronics. So the two women were on the phone, and the little
Phone
boy
and
brought his iPad.
there you
The
go.
only words which were spoken in the entire time that they were at that table was to put in their order and to say thank you to the waitress.
Wow.
And when all of the waiters and waitresses came to sing him happy birthday, one of the women was still looking at her phone. I think that is so sad.
That is.
What's the message that child is taking from what went on?
I mean, it's like we're there was a picture once that was, I think it did the rounds on WhatsApp. There was a room full of family, and there was a grandmother sitting in the corner, not open to technology as we all are today.
Yeah.
And she had all her kids and grandkids and everyone there. Each and every one of them was on the phone. And the grandmother was just like, who do I talk to?
Yeah.
That is, I mean,
many people have got better relationships with their phones than they have with
with their
themselves
family.
or their
Absolutely.
family.
Absolutely.
And
You
I
know,
think it's sad. I mean, don't get me wrong, technology is brilliant. However, I think that the tail is wagging the dog.
you gotta use it to your advantage and within limits.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think, I mean, if I did not get these, if I did not come up with these ideas of doing these live sessions with people like yourself, then possibly I would be sitting on my phone doing all sorts of stuff. But I was like, I need to get out of this. I need to, okay, if I want to use technology to the right advantage. Okay, I'm doing my work as well, which is
Yeah.
property, putting posts on LinkedIn and Instagram, but that's not enough.
Mm.
How much can one person buy from me?
Yes.
You know, there are thousands upon thousands of agents who are doing this right now. How me as an individual or as an agent can change that? So I thought, okay, let's do a live session with every that I speak to on a daily basis on so on LinkedIn, on Instagram, everyone that I spoke to, I just sent out a message. Like I sent out a message to you, Gina, that let's come on my live session on Instagram and then we can talk. And through the talk that we're doing, this message can be passed on to, I don't know how many people, 200 people, 300 people that watch my my IG TV movie that I do. This will call when I'm on a live session, but yeah, we're here.
Well,
So it's all about.
I turned the phone off before we started, so my phone's rung, and it was actually, it switched as onto the
No, but this is my mobile. So, you know, when I'm doing the live session, the mobile
uh,
starts ringing. It's yeah.
it's
But
not,
I
there's no,
but I'm planning to get an iPad so I can do this on an iPad and then I can have my phone there so it keeps on ringing the way
yeah,
it is.
it's not the end of the world, is it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So now that you're currently doing this, you mentioned that you were speaking, you were teaching kids, then you were a head teacher. So after that, why did you choose to get into motivational speaking? And how easy was it
Right.
at
Okay.
first for you to do this?
Whilst I was a head teacher, I worked for the National College of School Leadership as a
Okay.
training facilitator,
Okay.
and for the London Institute, and an advisor for the government. And so, and we were a beacon school, so I worked with many other schools. So I was used to speaking. I mean,
Okay.
not least of which assembly every morning for 21 years. I tell you, kids are the worst critics. But I left headship in 2004, and I left
Okay.
because of my health. And I thought, what am I going to do now? I'm not ready for daytime television. Doesn't do it for me. I've got all.
Jeremy Kyle.
Nah, nah. I'd almost rather eat my own head, I think. And I thought, I have, by this time I'd got 21 years of experience of developing adults.
Yep.
And so I decided to set up a research project to look across industries and see, were the issues that were facing us in school in terms of the development of leadership, were they also the same issues in industries? So finance, insurance, manufacturing, retail, health, local government, a whole range of industries. And of course, it was the same issues. So I wrote my first two books. And for the first few years, I worked mainly in corporates. I've always done life and couple coaching on one side, but in
Yep.
terms of the business stuff. And I did that until the last recession.
How easy was it writing books? Did you have someone with you to give you that inspiration, or no, it just came from you?
Well, my books, and I've written 5 now, my books are all, they're not novels. They're
Of
books
course,
about.
motivation.
So the first 2 books were very easy in that it was a distillation of all of the things that I used in school. So the first book, Kickstart Your Career, was to help professionals be people coming in from the world of school and university into the working world, how to be the professional grown-up, because they're often good at their subjects, but they haven't got a clue about how to behave in a professional environment.
Can you answer me that question? I know it's going to be a long one, but just a one line. How to be a professional in a working environment.
Take radical responsibility for the way in which you behave. Okay, and if it's a one-liner, that's the same piece of advice that I'll give to leaders. Take radical
Absolutely.
responsibility for the way in which you behave.
To government leaders.
To anybody. Yeah, it's and it works in your personal life. So
Yeah.
you know, if you hand over the responsibility of your emotional well-being, you're going to have to put up with what people give you. How many times have you heard somebody say, "He made me angry," or "She was so frustrating"?
I get it. I get it every day in my house.
Okay,
My
but
son and my daughter.
nobody can make you anything unless you choose to give them permission. So I want you to think about that. If you give somebody permission, and it's not done overtly, it's done tacitly, to yeah.
I'm so sorry about this. The guy keeps calling me. He's called me like 4 times. Apologies for that.
So what I was saying is, if you if your mood, your emotions are determined by the people around you, you've always got to put up with what they give you.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, take responsibility for your emotions, your thoughts, your words, your actions, and in doing so, you give yourself the gift of the freedom to choose, because everything that we do is a choice.
And
So
do you think to let go is also a big action to take when you're in that professional or family environment? You know,
holding
okay,
on to the hurt.
this person said this. I'm not going to speak to them. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to, you know, like you mentioned, I'm going to be angry with them, and that's it.
The biggest problem, I think, is, go back to what I said earlier, 95% of what we say and do is habitual.
Absolutely.
So you say something to me, and it's usually tone of voice, not the words, that get people. And
Yep.
that tone tips them into a place where they felt bad because they were criticized by somebody or they were unhappy.
Yep.
They then respond in a habitual way, which triggers the other person.
Yep.
And so that trigger upon trigger becomes an argument before you know where you are.
Yep.
But holding on to the hurt, I mean, for me, forgiveness is, well, firstly, is understanding that our perception is our reality.
Yep.
It's not the only reality.
Yep.
So if our perception is somebody's having a go at you, all right, you're going to respond on that basis. If you shift the perspective from naggy parent never stopping to, do you know what, they're trying to help me be a better person, then you're going to have a different response. Now, you can't change anybody else.
But how do you put that
Hold on a minute. You
sorry. Yeah.
can't change anybody else, but you can change the way you respond.
Yep.
So if you change the way you respond, over time, they will change too. So have a look at your response or your initial action or words to the other person.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for that. And if, you know, one of my favorite quotes of all time is Einstein's definition of madness. And yet we do it all the time. His definition of madness is that we keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. And we all do it. So if you want a different response from your daughter, your wife, your friend, your husband, your partner at work, your colleague, if you want a different response, then start to take responsibility and choose how you initiate or how you respond. Okay?
Yep.
I don't believe, you know, I'm never going to speak to them again. I'm going to withdraw. For me, that's passive aggression.
Yep.
And it doesn't serve anyone. But I want to make a point that forgiveness is not about condoning the behavior, nor is it about forgetting. And I've worked with a number of abused people, and they have been able to forgive the perpetrator of the most dreadful abuse. But in doing so, they cut the chain that keeps them locked into that hurt of behind that's
I mean,
gone.
it hurts the individual more than it hurts the other
It's
person.
like giving yourself the poison and expecting
Exactly.
the other person
Exactly.
to come.
Exactly.
So to go back to, so Kickstart Your Career was very much about giving people very simple principles and strategies to help them recognize that when they come into work, how they can operate. And
Yeah.
then the other book of the pair that I wrote at that time was called Manage Staff More Effectively, which was looking at the same themes, but from the manager's perspective. And so many managers get fed up because of the way their staff behave.
Absolutely. I'm one of
How,
them.
right. So come on my Enlightened Leadership program, because
I
what
will.
you will learn is don't start with them, start with you.
Yep.
So have you set clear, explicit, shared expectations? Do they understand them? Have you then modeled those to them? Do you hold them to account in a developmental way? Are you teaching them to think effectively, or is the way in which you're behaving meaning that it's not safe to think for
The
yourself?
most important point of that many managers or business owners face is that how do I get my team, how do I get my idea of working or my idea of running my business to my team for them to implement that?
Okay.
And those are one of the hardest, most stressful points that managers or business owners have to go through, because the other person, the team member, all they're looking at as, this is my job, I got to do it, and that's it. I'll get paid 9 to 5, fine. Whereas the boss wants more out of the 9 to 5 individual.
Come on the Enlightened Leadership program and we'll teach you exactly how to do that. Because ultimately, if you want people to be engaged and to take part ownership of the agenda of
Yep.
the making your business successful,
Yep.
you have to then engage with them and to help them recognize that they are a valuable part of the process. And that's not an instant thing, it's a way of being. But in the first instance, the people you choose to, work for you,
Yep.
the process has to start long before the interview.
Yep.
What sort of people do you need? And if you identify those, what sort of boss do I need to be in order to have those sort of people working for me? And then being clear, even at the advert level. So let me give you an example. And this has worked not only for me, but in countless organizations that I've worked with. You identify exactly what the role is and what sort of person you need for that role, both in terms of skill set, but personality. So for me, I was less concerned about, they obviously had to be a qualified teacher, but I'm less concerned about their level of qualification than I am about the person.
Okay.
Because you can learn almost anything. All right. But I wanted people who were hardworking, who were open to learning, who were great team members, who wanted to support and help others, who were enthusiastic, and who wanted to make a positive difference. Yeah.
Sure.
That was in my advert. So the people who saw my advert knew exactly what I was looking for. So that's only stage one.
We've got a comment by SML Properties saying, what an incredibly smart lady.
That's very kind. Thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate that. Okay, so the second step is your interview.
Yep.
People coming to my school for an interview, before we started, I would say to them, and I can almost do it word for word because I've done it so many. Before we start, this is an opportunity for us both to see if we're a right fit. It's as important for you to know this is the right place for you as it is for me to know you're the right person for us. So if you come here, the expectation is you will work incredibly hard, that you will be a good team member. We don't do ego or moods. that you will share, that you will be enthusiastic, and that you'll leave your ego at home under your pillow with your pajamas or your nightie. If that sounds something that you want to do, then please, let's carry on. But if not, now's the time to say goodbye and I wish you well. If they were then appointed, the first time they were moody or they didn't act as a good team member, I would go and very, very quietly say to them, do you remember the interview? We said we don't do moods here. It's Monday, you're grumpy, I suspect you've had a heavy weekend. Don't bring it into school. If you've got a problem, come and talk to me, but we don't do moods.
Did you have those instances with teachers?
Oh, yes. Did I have them many times with the same person? Oh, no.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Right.
it was the first time you mentioned it to them and it was like, okay, done, over.
If it happened again, all right, they'd get a couple of reminders. And if it happened again, then they'd be invited into the office for a formal conversation to say, look, we need to work on this. I'll help you. All right. But you're not recognizing when your mood or your behavior doesn't fit with what we have here.
Yep.
And one of the things that I've got most pleasure from is when young teachers, and we train teachers from scratch. It's unusual to have a license
experienced
to train teachers from graduate teachers, or they were young, and sometimes with very experienced teachers who would come and say, do you know, thank you. You've given me some hard messages, but always in a way that I felt that I wanted to do better.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, many bosses don't do that, that they don't set the expectation clearly. So they use words like excellence. All right. What does it mean? In our organization and in the organizations that I work with, we identify in terms of the different elements. What does excellence actually look like in the context of this organization, of this activity?
Yep.
So how would we know what the difference is between okay and good and excellence? So you have a shared language around what you're doing. And then you notice when people are doing it as you want, and you say thank you and well done.
Yep.
So people want to do it more.
Absolutely.
The other thing that many leaders do, many managers, is that when people come and ask them a question, they just give them the answer, and then they get fed up because they've got no time to do their own stuff because they're always sorting other people out. You've got to help people learn to be solution finders and not problem dumpers. Because if you encourage yourself to be the fount of all knowledge, okay, or when people make a mistake, and that you are then on top of them like a ton of bricks, and you don't use it as a learning example. I'm not sort of talking about people who make mistakes over and over again.
I mean, everyone makes a mistake, right? But then you sort of, like you mentioned, you
have a learning environment.
Yeah.
Where, and not only where you're teaching, but other people are teaching too, because the best way to learn is to teach somebody else.
Absolutely.
And these processes work incredibly well. They're so powerful. So with all of these things, you know, and it's not just one thing, it's how you do all of these things together. You can change your organization very significantly. So let me give you an example. I work with a dental lab. They make teeth. They make implants and
implants. Yep.
When I first started working with them, the owner, who also works in the business, he's the senior technician as well as the owner, run ragged. Everybody was being paid based on the number of elements that they created. They started very early in the morning, often 6:30 in the morning, and they were often working till 7:30, 8 at night.
Oh.
Run ragged, okay? And he was saying, I don't know I can keep this up, and the staff weren't particularly happy. implemented the principles and strategies of the Enlightened Leadership Program. Okay.
Yep.
So when I first started working with him, their turnover was just over £500,000. All right. Their turnover, not their profit.
Yep. Just the money they turned. Yeah.
Within 2 years, all right. And for me, most businesses, it's around the 9-10 months where things change. But I've just had the figures from last year: £890,000 worth of turnover. People now don't work on piecemeal; they're on a salary and they've got a profit share. And they start work, rarely start before 8:30. Very rarely work later than 5:30. On a Friday afternoon at 3, they usually go to the pub.
Okay.
Why? Because they've implemented the strategies that I'm suggesting, and that the owner takes radical responsibility for, if there's something going wrong, if there's something I don't like, instead of, oh, stupid staff aren't doing what I want, it's
go and speak to them.
No, it's what am I doing?
Yeah.
That is creating that circumstances, and how can I deal with that?
But then don't you think that once you do analyze, okay, what you're doing wrong, or how can you change that situation or something, wouldn't you go and want to talk to that person and possibly just give them
again, wouldn't you go and what?
Wouldn't you go and speak to them and just be a bit positive with them, so they get that bit of motivation, and they also realize maybe they've made a mistake, or just
that's part of it, but it's only part of the story.
Okay.
And so the strategies and the principles are they're a really comprehensive structure that enables you and your staff to thrive. And I think what many leaders do is they do some of it some of the time.
Yep.
And of course, if you're not consistent, then it doesn't work as well as it can do when it's done consistently. Go back to how important it is that you start with you, and actually you create the fundamental change in yourself that's consistent and embedded. And one of the reasons for the program being 10 months long is it gives people an opportunity to experience a number of challenges and crises, so this stuff really embeds. And it makes a huge difference, because not only is the business more profitable and more productive,
there's positivity within the company,
relationships are better, people have a sense of, we want this to do well because we're part of it.
Absolutely.
This is ours. It might be your business, but it's ours as well.
Exactly. I mean,
and
they are making that team that is building the business, moving the business forward, so.
And if as and when you do this, if there are people that you have appointed before all of this who don't fit, then you have to deal with that and give them the opportunity to change with support, or it may be that you have to part company, but you will do it knowing that you've done everything that you can to make it work.
Absolutely. Well, one final question, Gina.
Yeah.
What would you advise? It be family, husband, wife, it'd be a business owner, it'd be a manager, it'd be a team member, it'd be a working employee. What would you advise them in this current situation of changing their negative thoughts or their perception, or they can't work as a team anymore? And it's going to be different right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for the past 8 weeks, we've all been away. We've all been on virtual Zoom calls and go to meetings and all that kind of stuff. And now we're going to come again. Like, for example, today, the estate agency, the industry of the estate agency is starting. So people are going to come back again. How do they stay positive moving forward? What would you advise them?
I would say, first and foremost, and it's not one thing, but recognize that you are an amazing, creative, innovative human being.
Yeah.
And that if you allow yourself, give yourself permission to thrive, that you can do it. And that you will do it so much better if you collaborate and work with others. That you're not alone in this. And I think one of the things I hope that comes from this pandemic is to recognize that we are so much stronger when we engage with other people.
Absolutely.
And to do that with absolute integrity, to do it with compassion, and to have the courage to do what's right rather than what's easy. And at times to say, do you know what? That isn't right. That's not good enough. But to do it in a constructive and positive way.
Absolutely. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this live session, Gina. I mean, I had a motivational, like a business coach on yesterday evening, and today I've had a motivational speaker this morning. The amount of positivity that's running in my brain right now, it's absolutely amazing. I want to do this again with you, possibly raise a different topic.
Very happy to do that. Very happy.
To just sort of bring out that positivity amongst people. Possibly we can discuss family and personal life, relationships. Exactly. So thank you so much for coming on.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. And I think it's a wonderful thing you do.
Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever you're doing, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you very much indeed. You take
care.
Bye-bye
you
now.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Gina Gardner, a motivational speaker who came on our live chat this morning and shed some great, amazing light on how people should run their businesses or their personal life. It was absolutely amazing having her. So 2 more sessions for the day. Do join me in at 3 and 6. Let's see how it goes. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great Wednesday morning, afternoon, evening, whatever you're doing, and enjoy the rest of the week. Take care. Bye-bye.